Hello, people. Welcome back to E20 Zone TV. West Ham's fixture list has appeared today, and I'm here to talk about it. I'm not too convinced, and I'm not too happy with sort of the beginning part of the season and the end part of the season of this sort of fixture list. But I'm going to get into it today and go through it. Obviously, West Ham has come out that West Ham are playing Bournemouth first game of the season, and for me, it's a good starter. It is a good starter, but then the fixtures after that are horrendous, especially towards like the back end of May. Like them fixtures are also bad, but we're going to talk about it anyway. Hope you're all well. Before I get started, please smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel. Right, where is the video that I've set up? Is this? Obviously, the fixtures start off with Bournemouth on the 12th, and then obviously Chelsea and Brighton. Now that's tough. Honestly, I'm not being funny. Chelsea at home, they're going to be fresh, new manager and everything. Brighton, we never beat. We never beat anywhere, so that's going to be a tough fixture. And then obviously going to sort of September, you got Luton, which is going to be a tough game. Manchester City at home, Liverpool. By the end of September, we could be sitting on literally 3 points, if not 1 point. Do you know what I'm saying? Which could be a bit of a concern. Obviously, Newcastle at home, Villa and Everton. I would expect at least between 6 points there, hopefully. Do you know what I'm saying? But then, obviously, as I sort of move on into sort of December, we're in London the whole of the December month, which is a good thing. And then when you look at the sort of April, May time, that April and May is horrendous. I'm not going to lie. That's a tough like sort of 2 months there. Like Tottenham at home, fair enough, it's a derby. We don't know what to expect there. Obviously, Wolves away. We failed to win there the last 2 times, I believe. Obviously, Fulham, Palace, and then the last 4 games: Liverpool, Chelsea, Luton, and then obviously Manchester City. Like that is like, if you're talking about a title race, you're talking about teams that could be fighting for something. They're the 3 worst teams that you don't want to have. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, Luton squeezed in there. By the time we get to them, they will probably be relegated. If they're not relegated, then we're in a bit of trouble. But when I do look at these fixtures, I am a bit nervous, especially about the start. But obviously, Chelsea, Brighton, Luton away is going to be tough. Like, we should beat Luton. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not going to like overhype them. But like Chelsea, Brighton, Manchester City, Liverpool, they are tough games, mate. Really are tough, especially for us. And for us to go into that and look at that a bit more in depth it's a bit of an iffy one, really. West Ham need to get their act on, and that's one thing I will say straight away. Get these signings done, get them in the door. One thing we can't do is wait to the end of the window like we did last year. Right, when Lucas Paqueta come, I remember he started sort of like in September, I think it was, against Tottenham, if I've got that right. And we need him on the ground as soon as possible. Like, we need these players on the ground as soon as possible. So for me, when I do look at them fixtures, and I'm going to go have a little bit more look because that was only a 2-minute video. Obviously, like the start for West Ham, like last season's start was awful. Obviously, we had Manchester City and Nottingham Forest in the first 2 games. Now we've got Bournemouth and Chelsea in the first 2 games. Now, I can understand it from the sort of aspect of looking at them fixtures and thinking, you know, they ain't that bad. Chelsea at home is always a sort of 50-50 game. If West Ham turn up, West Ham usually put in a good performance against them. Do you know what I'm saying? But these fixtures could work one of 2 ways. You could look at these fixtures and go, if we start off fast, we can have a really, really good start. Do you know what I mean? Like, but if we start slow, last thing I need is West Ham getting to March and having to win must-win games. Like, when I look at March's fixtures, Everton away, Burnley at home, Villa at home, Newcastle away. You don't want to be going into April having to like play massive games like we did last year. Do you know what I mean? And especially if we end up it gets to May and we're in a situation where we need points to stay up. Like, for how good and bad certain teams are last season, they ain't going to be as bad as they were this season coming up, I don't believe. I think it's going to sort of change around. Do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, January is sort of a dead month for Premier League because obviously FA Cup takes over there. But it's 2 massive games there. Sheffield United away on the 13th, and on the Tuesday night, you've got Bournemouth at home. So West Ham need to get their act together and sharpish, especially when it comes to sort of getting these signings in. I will say that. Let me get to your comments and see what you've got to have to say. Good afternoon from, excuse me, East Anglia Irons. Hope you're well. And hi, James. Interesting start, mate. It is. I'm going to be honest. I'm a bit nervous about it, if I'm honest. Right, because Chelsea at home, okay, I can accept that. Big game, right? It's a sort of game West Ham could do with, like, to sort of get the season up and running. If we beat Chelsea at home, then that's a good thing. But if we don't, then, you know, it's not a good start. Bournemouth away, first game of the season, is a good sort of preparation game for West Ham. I will say that. Yeah, as if to say, you know what, we can go to Bournemouth with new players, impose ourselves. If we played like we played last season, fair enough. I can accept that. Yeah, it's just the final 2 months are awkward for West Ham, big time. Like having Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City, and squeezed in between them is Luton. Is like you are asking for it. Do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, circumstances can change. Teams could have like be going for the Champions League, could be going for Europa League, could be going for anything. Do you know what I'm saying? But for us, we have to start fast. It's as simple as that. And if we don't, then the struggle will be on literally from November. Do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, December's month, when you look at December's month, all our fixtures are in London, basically. We're either away to teams in London or at the LS. And which is a good thing, really. I will say that, because it gives there's not a lot of travelling. Do you know what I mean? And when you're got a busy December, last thing you want to be doing is going, like, 1 week you're going up to Newcastle, and then you're going over up to Manchester the following week and things like that. Like, you want to stay sort of close and compact. Do you know what I'm saying? But it'd be interesting to hear what everyone else's thoughts are on these sort of fixtures, because I'm a bit sort of torn, really, if I'm being honest. I think West Ham do have to start fast. They have to get at the very least, out of the first 3 games, they've got to get at least 4 points, at least. Anything less than that, then I think it's a struggle from then on. Do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, Bournemouth, I expect to win. Chelsea, under Poch, he ain't going to come light-hearted. There's no twos about that. So he's going to come strong. I'll say a point there. And Brighton is a team we just don't beat. We just do not beat this team at all, especially away from home. But it'd be nice to get the Brighton game out of the way, but every time we play them, we just don't turn up, and they just destroy us, really. So let's hope for a change on that this season. Obviously, we played Brighton at the beginning part of last season, and we got torn a new one at the LS. I think they beat us 2-0, and that was Tilo Kehra's opening, his debut for West Ham. So, yeah, listen, I'm not so sort of convinced on this one. I really am not. Do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, the back end of them fixtures, we don't want to be in a relegation battle, something like that. Because if we are, last game against City, we've got to get something. It ain't going to happen. Do you know what I'm saying? Because even City with their second string side or first string side will do a job against the team. Do you know what I'm saying? And obviously, Luton squeezed in between there, like the final home game of the season. It's a good game to have, final home game of the season, if you need to win to stay in the league. But I'm a bit nervous about them fixtures. I really am. And that's not me being negative. It's just the way that they've laid out. Obviously, I know you've got to play everyone, so it doesn't matter how you play them. You still got to play them. I get that. But it's just, there's no sort of sequence of a few nice games, and then then you get sort of the hard games. You know what I mean? We're getting the hard games at the wrong time, if that makes sense. Like Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City in like the final, final 3 games out of like 4 with Luton in there. That's not good. That's not good. Like last week, you wanted to be like chasing. Do you know what I'm saying? Do I think West Ham will be chasing this season in sort of like the Premier League? I do at the minute. If Declan goes, I fear that West Ham are going to go down the same route as they went down this season. Yeah, which is a bit of a concern. And obviously, them fixtures coming out, I'm just a bit on the sort of on the fence, big time with them. I will say that. Right, let's have a look, see what you guys have got to say. This will only be a short video. So, afternoon games, good days out down the coast, first couple of away games. True. West Ham in the sunshine is always a good thing to see. A good one. A difficult start to the season. Need new signings through the door. I agree on that, Steve, 100%. We need these players in, ready for the 12th of August. And that is it. Like, West Ham can't be mucking about. But if West Ham are going to sell Declan Rice, and obviously come out today that Arsenal are putting a stupid offer of £80 million plus £10 million add-on basically taking the piss, then we've got to make a decision on it. Like, we've got to go, right, are we selling him? Are we keeping him? If we keep him, we've got to build around this geezer as soon as possible. Do you know what I'm saying? And West Ham would have to do that. But definitely need signings through the door, 100%. Mate, for us, if we are struggling April and May, we could be relegation time. If that is the case, that's the only fear I have. The only thing I will say is West Ham seem to kick into gear towards the back end of seasons. I don't know why. Obviously, with Europa League in there and all, that's a major concern. Like having them sort of moody fixtures. But then saying that, West Ham never fail to surprise me. They just never do. If someone would have said to me about the Arsenal game this season, when we played Arsenal and Arsenal were just blowing teams away, and we go 2-0 down and we end up drawing a game, we could have won the game in the end. I would have never believed it. Do you know what I'm saying? So when West Ham do play big sides, they seem to turn up. It's like they've got a point to prove, sort of thing. Obviously, I don't want West Ham anywhere near the relegation zone, anywhere at all, come April or May, because if they are, then that is tough. Do you know what I mean? Like Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, like three of them in the last 4 games is borderline probably the worst you're ever going to get. Do you know what I'm saying? Especially with Chelsea with no European football. And I do think Chelsea are going to do some damage this year in the Prem. I don't know why. I've just got a feeling with no European football, I think this team will just focus on the Premier League and they'll be strong. So, let's see what happens there. Chelsea will be wank next season. Don't worry about them, mate. I don't know, mate. I disagree. I think they're going to be all right. Last game of the season away to City. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, they love getting us City away last game of the season. I will say that. On the Declan situation, I think if he goes to Arsenal or he stays, I don't think he goes Bayern. I can't see either Manchester clubs or Liverpool coming in for him either. I think if City come in for him. Now, I said it on Twitter earlier on to talk quickly about Declan Rice before I wrap this video up. I turned around and said, imagine if he does sign for City, he goes and wins the Premier League, and the final game of the season is West Ham versus Manchester City at the Etihad. And all the fans who have travelled up there get to see Declan lift the Premier League trophy. Now that is a storybook ending. Do you know what I mean? Because for me personally, and we're going to do a show on this over the next sort of few days, I don't want him going to Arsenal. I really don't. I'm pretty adamant on that. People say, well, it's a project. Me and WestHamOnline have had many rows about this, and I've turned around and said, no, not a chance. If he goes to Manchester City, he's a born winner then. Like, he goes to the best manager in the world, best team in the world. Why would you go anywhere else? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the plan? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to a club to try and compete with City, then I think you're stupid, if I'm honest. Like, if Manchester City come in for you, they want to sign you, you go to Manchester City because you're guaranteed at least a trophy a season, if not more than that. Do you know what I'm saying? There's no sort of area where you look at this and go, you know what, we ain't going to get nothing. Like, do you know what I mean? Manchester City ain't going to go a whole season without not winning something because they're that good. So for me, if he goes to Manchester City, I think everyone would be so happy for him to go there because he's going to play for the best manager in the world. If he goes to Arsenal, I'm not convinced, mate. Sorry, like nothing against Arsenal. I used to live in North London, but you go to the best team on the planet, and Manchester City are that at the minute. I will say that. Anyway, to sort of round it up for me on this, yeah, in regards to these fixtures, I am nervous to a point, but do you know what? Once the transfers start coming in, I might look at it a bit different. Chelsea at home, first game of the season, sunshine, LS, it's a good start-up for West Ham, yeah. London derby, all our new signings will be on show, whoever they are. Will Deck be here? That's another thing. But the back end of the season, West Ham have to start fast this season. They can't afford to have the start that they had last season, where they sort of didn't kick into gear till I think it was Villa. And even Villa away, they got lucky to get the 1-0 win and scrape over the line. West Ham need to come out all guns blazing against Bournemouth and try and get the win there. And then obviously Chelsea and then Brighton, which are 2 big games. Do you know what I mean? Will Brighton be the same team that they was over the last few years? Obviously, they've lost McAllister. They're probably going to lose Caicedo. I don't know, but West Ham just don't beat this team. Like, West Ham have never beaten Brighton since they've been in the Premier League. And like Glenn Murray used to haunt us forever. Let's be real there. So, for me, them first 3 games, West Ham have got to be on it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because obviously after that, you've got some massive games. Obviously, I think Man City are in there, and I think Liverpool are in there and all at some stage. So, it's going to be an interesting one, whatever happens, regardless. But let's just hope the club get the signings done and, make sure that we've got players in the door before the 12th of August. I will say that. East Anglia Irons. Opinions on David Sullivan going on Talk Sport after a European Cup victory. I can see why he done it. I didn't like why he did it, if I'm being real. I think he done it to sort of put Deck up on offer, to say basically, we're going to let you go, Deck. If you don't want to go, basically sign the contract, basically. £200,000 a week 18 months ago, when Deck's value's gone through the roof over the last sort of 18 months, is ridiculous. And I've always said this, you need to get Sullivan out the door before West Ham can go up levels. Do you know what I'm saying? Because a proper owner would not want their best player to come out of the academy for a very, very long time to go. Yeah. And I don't think, when I see Declan Rice, just talk about Deck quickly, yeah. When I see him, that doesn't feel like a man who wants to leave, in my opinion. He doesn't seem like he's pushing for the move. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. You can look at it on the one hand and say, is Deck looking not to say he wants to leave because he's got so much respect for the West Ham fan base, yeah? Or does he generally not want to leave? That is the $1 million question. Do you know what I mean? He does want to play Champions League, but this is where it comes into the argument of winning trophies and playing Champions League. If you go to a club like Arsenal, for me, that's not going to be guaranteed every season. That City is guaranteed. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I can see what Arsenal are doing. I can understand it. Listen, they had a really amazing season last season, yeah, and they were, to be honest, on paper, they all the way up to sort of the last sort of 4 or 5 games, they were the best team in the league. But when you've got Manchester City in this league and the way they are, and they've got Haaland up front, who's just a machine, they've got quality players all around the pitch, and some games they don't even have to break stride to win. That to me just says you go there because you know that you're guaranteed it. Do you know what I'm saying? Obviously, we're going to find out in the next few days what's going on there, because obviously a bid's gone in today, 80 million plus £10 million add-ons. Like West Ham wanted 120 now. Now they're being offered literally 80, really, because the add-ons are to win the Premier League or the Champions League over the next 4 or 5 years. So that's just ridiculous. Let's be real. But what I think about Sullivan on that, I thought he threw Declan Rice under the bus. He didn't have to do that, if I'm being honest. He could have said, you know what, we're going to evaluate our options. Listen, if a decent bid comes in, he's free to go, like a proper owner should be saying. But instead, he sort of says he wants to leave, and we can't stop him from leaving, and this and that. Didn't agree with it all, if I'm honest. There's ways of doing things, and you certainly don't do it 12 hours after winning a trophy. That's one thing I will say on that. So that's my thoughts on that. In regards to sort of the coming up weeks, let's hope West Ham get some players. Also, I'm going to say that. Obviously, I see stuff about players. Jonas Musa, the USA international midfielder, decent player. I done a video on him a few weeks ago. I turned around and told people about him. He's being mentioned quite a lot now. I think he's a very, very good player. Extremely good player. For 20 years old, he was brought up in Newham. He was born in the USA, lived in Italy, come over to the England. I think he went to school in Barking, I think, if I remember rightly. And he was training at Arsenal. And then I think Arsenal let him go, and Valencia picked him up. And he's been an international for the USA for a few good games for the USA. So I do like Jonas Musa. I think he's a good player. For me, also, James Ward-Prowse, I don't get the hype. I really don't. If you're like £40 million for a 28-year-old, is that really what you want to pay? Like, for me, that's just not. I'm not on that vibe, man. I really am not, because one thing we want to do is we want to sign players for the future, right? And he's like a stopgap for me. Yeah, he's like, you sign him now, you're getting what 3-4 years out of him, but you're not going to get the same money back for him. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's a bit of a concern. Let's be honest. Do you know what I mean? Barry, how are you doing, mate? I hope you're well. Barry Clark. Hiya, James. How are you doing? And I hope you're all good. Yeah, I'm good, mate. The sun is shining, and West Ham are just got the fixtures out, basically. I wouldn't let him go, even if he wants to. He's still under contract. The problem is, George, there's two ways of looking at it with the whole Declan Rice situation. I will say this. On the one hand, you've got to look at it from a long-term sort of future of West Ham. West Ham getting £100 million for Declan Rice builds a side for West Ham that can compete at the sort of top end of the Premier League. West Ham shouldn't be in the situation that they was last season. And with £100 million injected into the side, West Ham can go out and buy 2, 3, 4 decent players. Do you know what I'm saying? And pay decent wages for them players, yeah? The only problem I have is that with the way it's being handled, do you know what I mean? Now, I put a Twitter poll up the other day, and I turned around and said, how much should West Ham's transfer budget be this summer with and without Declan Rice? Now, if it's with Declan Rice's money, I expect at least the same amount of money that we spent last year, £163 million. Yeah. If West Ham don't sell Declan Rice, it has got to be at least 100 million. It has to be, right? Because the amount of players that we need, like we do need a left-sided player. I've said it a few times. I like Benny, but I think Cornet is not reliable enough. And if Ben Ramos not on it, we've got no one else. Yeah. I think we need a right-sided player and all. Like, because if Jared Bowen goes down for any reason, then we're knackered on the right. And I just think we do need certain positions, even with Deck in the side. Now, if we take Declan Rice out of this team, we're going to have to at least sign at least 6 players. People said, "Oh, we're only going to need 4." I don't believe so at all. I think we're going to need a lot more than that. I think we definitely 100% we need a centre half at this club. Someone who's young, fit, who can play regular. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we've got 3 centre halves at present, Obona, Zuma, and Agued, and they've all had injuries. And if any of them get injured, you don't want to be playing Ben Johnson at centre half or Tilo at centre half. And do you know what I mean? It's got to be a structure and balance, and there isn't at West Ham at the minute. That's one thing I will say. And obviously, if you take Declan Rice out of this team, you've got to replace him with 2 players and 2 quality players. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. One thing I will say is the new technical director from Bayer Leverkusen, Tim. His second name. Gone from the memory book, but we're getting him in. So for me, if he's come in here, don't be surprised if Jonathan Tah will be on the way here, because he's a player that West Ham have been linked with forever, it seems like, and we've just never got him. So if he turns up, Jonathan Tah, I think he's a German international, I think, if I remember rightly, decent player. We need some good players, West Ham, right? And we especially do for 2 major campaigns. Obviously, the FA Cup, League Cup are big, but the Europa League and the Premier League are the most important. Do you know what I mean? The Europa League will generate sort of quite a bit of revenue. And the Premier League, we need these players to keep us in the league and make sure we stay there. So, we'll see what happens there. Let's get into your comments. Afternoon, James. Afternoon, or fixtures haven't been so kind again. I agree, mate. I really do. I'm not going to be sort of ultra negative, Drano, but when I look at the start and the finish, we need to make sure that we're well clear of the situation. I will say that of going down. Who's to say Rice won't be worth more than he is now if he takes a new contract? He will retain his value. I agree, but I don't think it's him, mate. If I'm being honest, Barry. If you want me to be honest, I don't think it is him who really wants to leave. I think it's people advising him to leave. If I'm being honest, some of the videos and some of the photos I've seen, and there's a video that got circulated around sort of Twitter. It was on BT and No Filter, and it was basically talking about, you see Declan standing there, and I post it quite a lot. Anyone who follows me on Twitter, go over to my Twitter, and I post that video quite a lot. It's a powerful video. You got one man standing there, you got an army of fans singing your name, right? And maybe is Deck thinking to himself, am I going to be treated that way somewhere else, or am I just going to be another player? Because let's be honest, wherever he goes, Man City, you're going to get the trophies, so I can get that. But if you go anywhere else, is he going to be treated the same way? Same way? Because at West Ham, he is untouchable. Let's be honest, he's a legend, really. Now you've got to say he's a legend because he's guided us to a trophy. He's Only Billy Bonds and Bobby Moore are the only two who've done that. He's done that and all, so he's in that sort of conversation. So to go now, we don't want him to go on so much on a higher, and then he just is a player that goes somewhere else and flops. So he's got a big decision to make, really. Me personally, if you're loved by a club, yeah, and my attitude is, if you are a legend at a club, you just say you stay there for the rest of your career, yeah, his name will forever be remembered. If you go somewhere else, will his name really be forever remembered? I don't believe so. I really don't. Because I think what he's done at West Ham and the transformation that we've had over the last few years in these sort of European competitions, without Deck in our side, I don't think we would have been the same. I just don't think so. I think I've always said this, we've got a world-class player on our hands. I really do. So, we'll see what happens. We need to make sure we relate homegrown quota. I agree on that. Sullivan's got plenty of money. He should splash the cash anyway, and then we can win more trophies. I agree, mate. But he's got money, but he's still saying it's okay having it. But is he going to spend it? I don't think so. Rice will never be looked at as a legend for anyone else than West Ham. And I agree. I don't think he wants to go, but we do need to build a team around him, around Deck. Yeah, and that's the problem. And this is where the old ownership model comes into play for me. Yeah, when you've got a player like Deck, who is a quality player, I think I just look at him. Part of me thinks he hasn't got the attitude to go. Now, is he looking at this and going, I'm not going to say about leaving because I respect West Ham so much, but he does want to go, or does he generally not want to go? That is the $1 million question. The only person who can answer that is him, really. And if he was going to go, I think he would have said something right now. He would have at least said something at the parade. Because you've got all them fans there. You've said, right, this is my final time, yeah, at West Ham. If I'm not here next season, thank you for everything, all the love you give me. But to go and leave, and let's be honest, if he goes and leaves this summer, and it's like he sends out a Twitter feed or an Instagram post, it ain't gonna feel any like good, is it? Do you know what I'm saying? So we will see what happens. Who is he leaving? Is it because they don't want to play for Moyes? Well, that's the question. Joel, the trouble with Sullivan is he's as the money is never enough. Yeah, I agree. I really do agree on that. Right, I'm going to wrap this up, people. Thank you very much. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Tonight, we might be doing an after-hours show. I might have an Arsenal fan on. I'm going to do a bit of work in a little while and see if I can get someone on to talk about, obviously, Deck. All the boys could be on tonight. So, listen, have a look later on tonight. If there's anything on there, it'll be on there. I'll obviously promote it and everything. So, thanks for watching anyway. And let's hope that the fixtures don't look as bad or feel as bad when we're playing them. That's one thing I will say. But I'm going to end it there. Take care of yourselves. Peace.